we are discussing Enjoy Poverty by Renzo Martens. This is a slightly unusual film. It's a video art piece in a way. Uh, the filmmaker doesn't categorize it as a film. So yeah, small audience today. So maybe Mohammed, Aroonav, both of you. Did you like the film? Did you dislike the film? We can start with that and go from there.
Okay, shall I?
Yeah,
Please go
go
ahead.
ahead.
So my first impression would be that this was really a different movie for me. Not movie, sorry, a documentary, and I loved the theme because the purpose why he's making this documentary itself is a very human. What he's doing, what he's recording, and how he's showing the other face, other side of the face. These people, so-called philanthropic activity doers, what goes into helping these poor people, but actually it doesn't reach them. So that was the thing I really loved, the theme and the purpose, especially the purpose why he's doing it. Usually people who capture image or make a movie, they have that intention of having some benefits out of it. But here I think he's trying to educate the society. Is trying to show the world that uh, whatever is happening with these poor people, how we are extracting our living through on their misery. We are just investing in their misery and we are living. So that itself blew my mind, that here is a man who has taken that courage to expose these so-called helpers. So that was a beautiful thing. And yeah, that's my all first impressions.
Okay, so I am currently conflicted about this film. So I saw it yesterday. Probably I haven't had enough time to digest it yet, or think about it too much yet. So yeah, as you said, this is not a film, right? This is more of a performance art piece, right? And it is intended to be a kind of shock therapy, right? And it is quite a difficult watch, right? Especially the portions where he just keeps on showing the malnourished children from different angles, and it's just very, very hard to watch, right? And I can understand that it's intended to be so, right? So so first impression, right? So first impression would be that, okay, so before I get into first impression of the film itself, so the thesis of the film, right, the central thesis which Renzo is propagating here, is that poverty is Congo's greatest natural resource, right? And what he's evangelizing is that the Congolese people should seize the means of production, basically. You take control of that, you depict the poverty, don't let the white man do that on your behalf. So, letting aside that part, the central thesis itself, that poverty is Congo's greatest resource or Africa's greatest resource, I'm sure most people would agree to that, right? So there's no real disagreement there, right? Now, the way this, uh, again, I, I don't know whether I should call this a film or not. This piece of art, let's say, or this performance, treats the subject, it's in a auto-differential way, right? Self-referential, not self-referential, it's just auto-differential. I mean, there's a difference between self and auto-differential, right? So what it's doing,
Very quickly, could you expand upon what you mean by self and auto?
so okay, let me okay, it's very hard to explain. Let me explain through the film itself, right? What is happening through the film, right? So uh, in the film, what is happening is the white guy comes in. He kind of tells the people that, you are being exploited through media. Media depicts your suffering, your poverty as a product to a set of audience, which is their captive audience, and they're profiting off of it, right? While your economic state, everything remains the same, right? And then we see the guy who is doing that in the film, the director Renzo. He is himself exploiting the same people through media, right? He's just giving them a view. He's telling them, um, you know, there's no way you can escape this. either you take, first of all, he tells that you take control, you own the means of production, you depict the poverty uh, yourself. He takes under his tutelage a bunch of photographers, right, and shows them how to do it and all of that. But ultimately that fails. Um, then what does he do? He just gives them a view, and then that the greatest gimmick in the film, right, the neon sign of enjoy poverty please. He just shows that people dance, and ultimately he just gives them a meal, um, that one family, and he leaves, right? He leaves to his uh, uber comfortable or relatively comfortable life in Europe, right? So what what is happening here is that this film itself is a parallel or a parable for all of all of the Western world's activities in Africa or Congo, right? So um, so what he's basically trying to do is that it's not critiquing what the Western world is doing in Africa or in anywhere in the Arab world or anywhere in the third world, right? By just showing that this is bad, it is just duplicating it. That's how I mean, or that's what I mean by autoreferential, right? So yeah, so whatever he's critiquing, he's doing the same thing in the film himself. So that's my major takeaway from the film.
So
And
your take is that he has no moral ground to stand on, because he's exploiting them just as much as the people he's complaining
yeah,
about.
yeah, that is fine. Okay,
Okay.
now the point is that in the film itself, he is not making it very clear that that is his intention. But when he's actually promoting the film in the same places which where the photographs of poverty or suffering are exhibited, because this is a performance art, the target audience is of course museum audience or some sort of cinematheque, things like that, right? When he's actually promoting the film there or introducing the film there when it is being shown, then he's I mean, at that point of time he's showing that all of this was my intention. So therein lies my concern.
So you are this happens off camera, outside the film.
Yes, yes,
Okay. So this is something you have researched and you have found on your own.
yes,
Okay. So I think we can agree that these images of poverty are being used for profit making, right? And and by the way, before I continue, I should just say, for the sake of the argument, I will not take a stance in the discussion. Later on, after we're done, if you want to hear what I think, I can make talk about it. But for now, I'll just be a facilitator for the discussion. Okay. Back to what I was talking about the profit making aspect of poverty, how people's misery and difficulties are used to generate some sort of income, right? So in the examples that we see in the film, it is either news bureaus who are um, selling articles about the situation there, or if it's non-profits who are using it to drive up donations, things like that. And uh, our listeners in the US will remember this company called Tom's Shoes. And in the early 2000s, they had a unique proposition that every shoe you buy from us, we'll donate one more pair of shoes to poor kids somewhere in the world. And just through word of mouth, they had immense popularity. And I looked up the figures, and they, at their peak, I believe they were worth $650 million. So that's not something a small startup, a small fashion startup can land up in. It's not an easy position to be in. Most brands, they partner with bigger brands to scale up like that, but just through natural word of mouth, they were able to get there because people really believed in the cause. That if I buy Tom shoes, it's a more ethical purchase because someone else is also benefiting from it. Poor kids in other parts of the world are benefiting from it. Now, I'm sure the company Tom's must have donated the shoes, and I couldn't find any reports of mismanagement. So um, I believe what they promised, they delivered in some category. But the argument is similar, right? The point this filmmaker is making, that poverty is a natural resource, and there is profit to be extracted from it. So what is the ethics of that? How do you feel about this aspect of the film, or this aspect of the subject that we're talking about? That yes, there is poverty in the world, and it's going to be very difficult to eradicate it, but should profiteering be allowed, or is there a solution for this problem?
Within our current system, current socioeconomic system, there is none, because there is profit to be extracted out of poverty, or images of poverty, or depictions of poverty, because there is a market which exists for that, right? Unless you remove that market, there is always be a demand for that, and that market cannot be removed within our system. And I'm not passing any value judgment on whether that is wrong or right, because I believe markets are supreme. They take care of themselves. But in the current system, a market exists, and to satisfy the demands of that market, this profiteering will continue to exist.
Is there a demand though? That's what I want to know,
There
because
is,
it's
there is. So
it's it's not like we're looking for such content online or in the films we
sub,
watch.
subliminally, we all are, right. Not we all, we in the third world, not so much, but in the first world, in the white world or the Western world, subliminally people are looking for this kind of content, right? Because it inherently makes them feel good about themselves, right? So Africa as a or Africa has been treated as a concept by the Western world all through its existence, right? As I mean, it's been used to assert how West is superior to them, or how different the West is, right? That's how Africa has been used. So a market for that has always existed, right? From, let's say, when Joseph Conrad wrote Heart of Darkness, that is also set in the Congo, and that still continues to exist. And the point that you made about this ethical consumerism or ethical capitalism, right? Then that's another aspect of looking at it, right? So I'm sure you know about Slavoj Zizek, right? So he has this brilliant small little part in The Purpose Guide to Ideology, that documentary, where he talks about how Starbucks, uh, propagates this kind of ethical consumerism, right? So in Starbucks, as we all know, it's exorbitantly priced.
Hmm.
So when you buy something, right, it's written that we give 1% of our income, or some percent of our income, to some Congolese children or Guatemalan children, to keep them healthy, uh, to to provide water to sub-Saharan farmers or something, or to enable organic production of coffee or rubber or whatever, right? So in the old days, right, in the earlier days of capitalism, maybe in the US or the UK, where it first started, uh, I mean, when you bought a product which you probably could have done without, you felt bad, right? That I'm just a consumerist. While people are starving in Africa, I'm consuming these things. I'm drinking Starbucks. So now they have just pivoted that, right? The idea is that you have to do something to counteract that, your pure sense of consumerism, right? So what it's doing, what Starbucks or any corporation is doing, is enabling you to be a consumerist without in bad conscience, right? Because there is a price attached to, or price for, that countermeasure for fighting consumerism, which is already included into the price of the commodity. Like, if you pay a little bit more, you are not just a consumerist; you are also doing your duty towards the environment or the poor or whatever. And that is the ultimate form of consumerism, ethical consumerism.
Yeah, this concept, or this word you may have heard of, corporate social
Yeah,
responsibility,
yeah.
CSR. That's what they call.
We do
So
that. We are involved in that.
right. I believe in India, by law, you're after a
Yes.
certain amount, you
Yes.
are obliged to
Obliged to.
take part in
Yes.
CSR.
Yes.
So this whole idea of using CSR as a marketing campaign really blew up with Toms, because they could now see the potential that if we play on the emotions to drive up sales, it can drive tremendous organic growth.
Hmm.
So you don't have to compel people to buy anymore. People, recommend your product to each other, saying that, hey, instead of buying, your Skechers, why don't you buy Toms?
Hmm.
This happened with Livestrong as well. Livestrong again was a phenomenon in the US. In the
Every corporation has adopted this.
Mhm.
Everything. Even in India, you will see brands doing this. We are organic. A portion of our profit. If you see classmate notebooks, right? Very highly priced. But at the end, it will be written that 2% or 3 rupees from this will go to this charity, that charity, just to make you feel good.
Yeah, this is something new. I don't know what you have said. It really is that by saying that they are donating it to somebody, we feel that we are escaping that guilt of
Hmm.
spending, guilt of
Yes.
consuming.
Hmm.
That's a beautiful thing.
That's exactly what they want you to feel, right? To enable your
Mm,
spending.
yeah, that I never recognized market could also manipulate our conscience in that way.
Not really
That's
market. It's the corporations who are doing that,
mm,
right?
They're using the same strategies of advertising as they are using it for charity.
Hmm.
So the same principles are being used. And another way the demand for this such content could be categorized as is a very sinister one actually, is that people who are not doing so well in life, or most people, most humans in general, have an innate desire to feel that they're lucky because somebody else has a worse life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And uh, let's assume for a second that uh, I'm broke and I'm living on welfare and I have, just barely making rent, and I don't have friends. I'll switch on my TV, watch some reality TV show, and see people who are, you know, much worse off, who they make a, what do you call, freak show out of people on reality TV. And that's the entire reason reality TV exists, that it is designed to make people feel better about themselves at the end of the day.
Exactly. That is the
uh,
core market that I was talking about.
and yeah, I guess I could see that argument, that there is some demand for this, that people want to feel better about themselves by knowing that they are not at the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah. It just
And
validates our own position of wealth, right? It makes us feel that I've got problems, but theirs are much worse.
hmm, and this is not just about Africa. We see similar content being made about people in India also. We see
Mhm.
similar content being made about people in Indonesia, Philippines,
Yep.
uh, South America, a lot of places.
Yeah.
So, which brings me to this question about, I like to call this kind of content poverty porn,
Yep.
and I've uh, complained and written about it for many years. So, be that as it may, I want to ask you to, when it comes to documenting this this material, because in a way it is absolutely shameful and tragic that such situations even exist. In the film, you see a little baby girl, maybe 1 or 2 years old, and she has so many different conditions, and she's living a painful life. So in a way, there is some necessity for such stories to come forward as well, right? So how do we decide what should be shown and what should not be shown? Is there an answer to this?
There is no, I would say there is no specific answer to this. It all depends upon the power dynamic between the one being depicted and the depictor. So here, I mean, the problems that Renzo is talking about are duplicating, right? It's the the depictor is always a coming from a privileged position, uh, basically a white male who is, far above the power hierarchy, from the uh, from the person or the situation being depicted. So therein lies the actual problem, according to me.
I feel that it is needed that it should be shown to the world that like people like me who don't have any idea that what people are going through their life, knowing them and knowing them actually triggers a question in me that what am I doing in my life, my own life, and how can I be a better man by doing something that may affect other people's life, and it will help them to live better. So getting or showing the story out, it's necessary, but as you are saying, what is to be shown and how much is to be shown, I don't have any thought on that, but yeah, we should know such stories.
Because in the film, the director himself says, right, it's all about what you show and what you don't show. That's a really, you know, powerful decision to be made over there. That you have 7 8 hours of footage. What 30-second clip do you send to the news agency, or what 30-second clip do you use in your CSR commercial? And
If the image is mundane, then I don't see. Suppose a person comes and shows me a picture of a flower. Definitely, I will not be interested in watching it. But if he says that this flower has something uniqueness in it, then definitely I will invest my time and money for watching that flower. Similarly, if I have just seen human with healthy human going around doing their own life, I will never be interested in knowing because it's a fact to me. But whereas certain situations, certain instances which I am not aware of, such such images or video or those should be given priorities. That is what is my take on.
so, in a
So
way, what you suggest is the shock value is somewhat necessary to, shake people
No,
out of their
not just
comfort zone.
shock value, not just shock. Yeah, that is one thing. What
Yeah.
he says that people love to watch negative.
Hmm.
Negativity gets sold at the maximum price. That is what he speaks. But in this world, it's not just about negativity. There is lot of goodness. So
Hmm.
showing opposite is also equally needed, not
Hmm.
just the extreme. Yeah, extreme is what we love.
Hmm.
We love the dull. We love to watch dull human, stupid humans, and the intelligent one, the genius one.
Hmm.
uh, I'm not saying just the bad things, but yeah, good things are to be shown equally.
I don't know if you were saying something.
yeah, so I was about to bring up a book by one of my favorite writers, Susan Sontag. She has a very famous book called On Photography, right? So there she speaks about this kind of videographic documentation or photographic documentation and what can be gleaned from that, right? So
You're talking
I'm
about Susan Sontag, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, right.
So what she basically says is that there is a limit to what a piece of photograph or a video or any sort of representation of suffering can do, right? So it can actually, kind of prick your conscience. It can go to your conscience, but the knowledge that it imparts, right, it can never be ethical or political knowledge. The knowledge that you gain through photographs or videos will always have a certain kind of sentimentalism, right? Either cynical or humanist, right? It'll be a knowledge at bargain prices, a semblance of knowledge, right? So let's say you are looking at a picture of a malnourished child who is being shown in the film, so you get a sense of the human suffering involved there, right? So but what's happening that it's invoking a sense or a reaction of empathy from you, right? Which I would think, or even Sontag is writing, is it should be deemed as inappropriate, right? Because what empathy as a reaction does is that it allows you to completely disregard the structural violence which is at the root of that suffering, right? So that is the point. That is the limitation of any form of photographic representation of suffering.
Now, uh, building on what you said, there is also this problem that a lot of the people who are in this situation where they are living a terribly difficult life, if they want to accept help, they must agree to being photographed.
Hmm.
And you see that in the film also, right? This one starving man is sitting on his own, just waiting for, you know, maybe someone will give him something to eat. And people just come in with their camera, lens directly at him on his face, click picture and go away.
Yeah.
There's no not even the formal niceties, good evening sir, how are you doing, can I take a picture? Nothing. Come and take a picture, go.
Yeah.
So
And
that must not be a nice position to be in,
hmm,
right? In a way, you're accepting the role to be paraded around the world as someone who's in a very horrible situation. That cannot be good for anyone's dignity.
hmm.
So I wonder what that does to these people, right? That you're showcased as.
But the thing is that do they even get to see these pictures or whatever? Like in the film itself, right?
Mm,
When
mm,
that villager asks him, right, will we get
mm,
to see the film? He says no, it will be shown in Europe. So
mm,
that's the point, right?
mm. But they're aware of what the images will be used for.
Yes. And they are quite perceptive of that, right? When Renzo actually explains all of this to that group of photographers, they
Mhm,
grasp it quite quickly. They understand it
mm,
because it's the lived experience. They know it. Who
mm,
better than them to understand?
mhm,
Here, I would like to quote something, my observation, what has happened in previous COVID situation. When this so-called philanthropics people who come and distribute food and medicines, I've seen them taking a lot of photos. That
Philanthropic tourism, man. So there's a term for it now.
philanthropic tourism. Nice way to put it. What I've seen, for every kit or one bag, they take an image. Okay. Um, there is, they justified it when I asked, why do you take so many images? They said the people who are paying us, who is giving money for this all material, they must know that we are giving this. What It's kind of a justification of proof that we have done our duty. That is what was their justification. But if I thought that, okay, if I go and take that kit, what my thoughts will be, definitely I'll feel hurting my self dignity. My dignity has been robbed. Then I will never go and take it at all. I prize my self respect, my dignity, than getting a kit which will last only 2 or 3 days. uh, so we as a human, we know that, okay, we have to prize our dignity. But whereas this African people, uh, they don't have least idea that having self respect is much more than uh, but still it's difficult to put in their case, because getting a meal itself is a big challenge
Yeah,
to
yeah.
them. So we
Hunger is
can't,
before everything else.
yeah, we shouldn't compare them to us, our dignity to their dignity. It's a very wrong way to put. Yeah, it's a very bad thing what they are doing, but that's the only way they will get some help. That is the thing. So the the same question came, that is this director, is he doing any good than those UNICEF people? He's coming, he's telling them to just suffer it. But whereas those UNICEF people, at least the least amount of help they are trying to give. But whereas this man just fed those family, he said, okay, eat it, nice fish. uh, so I felt somewhere, it's good whatever people are doing, giving least. It's good, at least they are doing the least amount of help they can in their capacity. um,
So two things here, right? So first, the role of these Western aid organizations, UNICEF and all the other. organizations in that particular group. What they are doing is, why are they giving the bare minimum? Because they need to perpetuate this market. If
Yes.
they don't give that bare minimum, these people will die, their market is gone. So they are
Mm.
acting out of self interest, and whoever is actually genuinely working for these philanthropy organizations, a vast majority of them are also doing it to placate their own conscience, right?
Yes.
Out of
Mm.
self-interest only. So that's point one. Second is regarding what Renzo is doing here. So like I mentioned, right, that is his whole idea of the film. His whole idea is to duplicate whatever the Western world is doing in Africa through his film, by himself, through himself. So he just wants to mirror that.
So Mohammed brought up an interesting and important scene towards the end where he feeds the children of the plantation worker, right? And what is uh, interesting is first he eats the meal himself, and they're all just watching. Then he gives the half-eaten
Mm.
box of food to the kids, and then the lunchbox of food comes to the plantation worker. So what was supposed to be one meal for this director became one a meal for multiple people in a family over there. And obviously, like Mohammed said, in a way, he's feeding the family, so it's good. And that's the thing, right? That's the crux of the discussion that we're having. That yes, charity is good. Yes, feeding people is good, and you are shooting all this video with the intention of doing good. But more than that, what is the actual intention behind all this, right? Is the organization, like you said, UNICEF or any other company, are they doing this because their quarterly revenues are low and they need to drive up more campaigns, or are they doing it seriously because these people desperately need help, and if we don't help them, then there is a chance some of these children may not survive. And we see a death of one child in the film. It's not uh, it's not easy to watch. And in the film also, he goes to a press conference. He asks this international team of people who have secured 1.4 billion dollars for some aid, and the director asks them that 1.44 billion is a big number. It's a big chunk of the economy. How much of that will actually go to the people? So yeah, there is an, a difficult question to be asked here, that yes, charitable work is good, but what is the real motive behind all this? And and another thing I wanted to ask is, in when you're filming a documentary, right? You expect that a documentary is telling the truth, and like Aroonav has pointed out, the director of the film claims that he's playing a character or a caricature of a person. He's acting. That's what he's trying to say. That the person you see in the film is not himself. He's pretending to be a character, which is why he wears that safari hat and uh, makes makes the plantation workers carry his luggage for him instead of carrying anything himself. So that is deception in a way, right? And Is that is how do you guys feel about that? Is should that be acceptable in a documentary, or do you think documentary should only be strictly facts?
So therein lies my concern. Right? This is not a documentary. This is a performance art, and the intended audience of this is not your third world people, the people they are shooting. The intended audience is, they belong to a very upper strata of society who dabble around ideas of art, right? So yeah, this is not a documentary at all.
Or in general, in a documentary, do you find such form of dishonesty or manipulation acceptable? In a feature film, yes, we agree to be manipulated. We are there for entertainment.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. That's fine. I'm all for that if it serves to illuminate a larger truth.
mhm. Okay, Mohammed, are you there?
Uh, I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah.
this documentary, and as you are saying, he's wearing the cap and he's like behaving himself like a UNICEF or a symbol of UNICEF or any organization, NGO offering. So he makes them carry their luggage as you know. So I feel now I am feeling that yeah, it's not a documentary, performance art. This is something new to me.
The director's argument is that he's doing this for entertainment. That
Oh,
he's pretending.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
Entertainment.
yeah, yeah. He's pretending to be uh, this person who the audience can criticize. That is his uh, position. And like Aroonav said, if you're unhappy about his conduct on screen, then he agrees with you. At least that's what the filmmaker's stance supposed to be. But my question is, do we find that acceptable uh, for a documentary film, or do we expect a documentary film to stick to the truth? And this is the problem with all documentaries, right? And a lot of people look down upon documentaries for this reason, because documentaries are made with a certain agenda. They're not a news report. So, in a way, they have some creative license to tell you what their version of the truth. So, my question is to two of you, the audience. When you watch a documentary film, do you expect that film to truthfully convey the subject, or are you okay with some degree of manipulation? Aroonav says some degree of manipulation is acceptable. So, wanted to see what you think about the subject.
Yeah, actually, there is an interesting thing. Few days I was thinking, what should I tell my friends what I do? So instead of telling I watch movie, I was telling that I watch documentary. Somewhere I felt that using the word documentary shows them that I have a better authority or understanding of the subject than watching a movie on the same topic, same thing. Say, for example, education. So I watched the Alma Mater. So it shows that it's a documentary. So I can quote them anywhere and it will be accepted because it's a documentary which has lot of authority in our society, and it will be easily accepted by the people without much of the argument. When I say movie, feature movie, and movie is all about entertainment, and you can manipulate however you want to, or you can project your thoughts or a character the way you like it. So when the documentary word itself shows to the public that it's confirmed, it's authorized by intellectuals that it is truth. But now after watching a lot of documentaries, I feel that there is a lot of propaganda in them. um, and I'm unable to differentiate what is true even in a documentary.
What I feel is that I approach any documentary as a propaganda film. That's the best way.
Then what is the real purpose of documentaries in National Geography? They are all called documentary. So you could help me out here.
Now, that is a completely different matter. We are dealing with a we are not dealing with anthropocentric world, right? We're dealing with animal wildlife, right? That is completely different. Where
Okay,
you
if it deals with the human life, it's a propaganda driven.
no,
Somewhere there is a propaganda, but when
yeah,
it's
I'm being
dealing with
tongue in cheek here.
animals, okay.
I'm being tongue in cheek here. So yeah, any piece of documentary is it's being shot from the director or the maker's perspective, right? You cannot go watch a documentary looking for an objective truth, right? So some people might say, let's take an example of very famous documentaries, right? Maybe Fahrenheit 9/11, right? Michael Moore's documentary. Right? Some people might say it's God's only truth. Republicans will say it's a complete load of shit. So similarly, so many of these kind of films exist, right?
But documentaries are usually academically more accepted because they are well researched. That is what I have been told.
Okay. So, Mohammed, at least in your circle, the consensus is that if the information comes from a documentary, it is more credible. When it
Yes.
comes from a movie, it is not taken seriously because movies are made for entertainment.
Yeah.
Now, the discussion that we are having is that should documentaries stick to verifiable facts, or can they be allowed to manipulate us in the name of entertainment? Because in this movie, the director has done that, right? He has done some actions which Aroonav does not agree with, and I think you also don't agree with. But when you question the director about it, he says that I was playing a character. It's not me. That is not my behavior. But I was doing this for the film to make it more entertaining. So that's that's a question we're trying to find an answer to. And like Arunav said, right, every documentary is trying to sell its own version of reality. So here's the question for documentary filmmakers that we, the audience, are posing: that should there be some sort of accountability when it comes to documentary filmmaking, or should we disregard documentary filmmaking as uh, you know a means of trustable information, because they're making entertainment, so we should not trust them. So that's the question: should they be allowed to manipulate us in the name of entertainment, or
But then
should
again, who authorizes that? Who limits you from doing anything? Who owns truth?
no, right now you, the audience, have been given a platform to say this very vocally to any documentary filmmaker who's listening. What do you want as the audience? Do you want some accountability when it comes to documentary filmmaking, or are you okay with you know the are you okay with bending the truth to make a more entertaining film?
I am okay with any form of manipulation in any form of film, as long as it serves a greater purpose.
Okay. And
I believe the owner has all right to present it whatever way he wants.
but then that also means that if you take a quote from a documentary, then it should not be taken seriously, because again, documentary is made for entertainment. So uh,
Yeah, any film is made for entertainment. Any film is a commercial film, right? All films want to make money.
hmm. And documentary originally began as a way to document reality, right? It's an extension of journalism.
Yeah,
We are
yeah, the early ones.
documenting reality, and we are presenting it back to you. But
But even from the early days, right? You take the very famous early documentaries, maybe Flaherty's Nanook of the North.
Nanook of the North. Yeah.
Yeah, even that was staged, right?
Hmm. Right.
So there has been an element of deception involved right from the inception of documentary.
So in a way, maybe documentary film should be called non-fiction entertainment.
Yeah, non-fiction is a very good way of saying documentary is a misnomer.
Because documentary implies, like Mohammed said, some degree of truth and research and credibility. But it turns out that the filmmakers don't think of themselves as accountable to any of that. So moving on, I want to play an audio clip I have of the filmmaker making a point, and let's listen to what he says, and we'll talk about it further.
There was a recent article, maybe that's what you referred to
Yeah.
in After All, and I really loved it. It was a brief analysis of the film that I couldn't have come up with myself. The author, a Belgian author, makes the comparison between this film with other pieces of art or visual culture that is far more important than this piece. Pictures made in the concentration camp of Auschwitz just before the end of the Second World War. Pictures made by Jewish inmates, let's call them, or people to be exterminated. And so these people went to enormous risks to smuggle in cameras and whatever you need to make a picture, and to smuggle it back out, and somehow they succeeded. But they were only printed or published after the war, and I think it was even in the 80s or something when
very late actually.
yeah. But what the author of the article argues is that these people, these concentration camp inhabitants, made these pictures because they had a belief in the outside. You have a terrible situation, but only if the news of it, the evidence, would reach beyond the frontiers of that terrible situation, then somebody would do something about it. That's why they made the pictures. It was like a lifeline they threw out, and they had an apparent belief in the sanity of humanity outside of this terrible situation they were in. And now the author makes a comparison with this film, which of course cannot be compared, but anyway, he does it anyway. And he says that this film somehow argues that there is no outside. All the lifelines that these people continuously throw out, help us or do this or do that, they are all incorporated in a structure that surely manages this terrible inequality, but it manages it, but it doesn't change it. It just manages it. It makes pictures of it, starts some little program here or there, has a temporary fair trade campaign that helps for, as long as the cameras are directed on a particular place. And, so all the lifelines do not create an outside to the terrible situation. And of course one can argue Auschwitz cannot be compared with Congo, and that's absolutely a very important point. Nevertheless, millions and millions died in these wars, and we have far more to do with it than even the art show up here will show you. We have very much to do with it. So, and I think it's an important point for the way the strategy, let's say, of the film, and the strategy that I try to develop in making the film, is to show the case that there is no outside, that I, and therefore the film I make, are integral parts of the problem.
As they are the journalists and the humanitarian relief.
And the audience.
And the audience itself, actually.
And the audience itself.
Audience to the art piece, but also readers to the newspaper.
Sure. And of course, not to be forgotten, because we like to talk a lot about how we help Africa, but it is also an integral part of the business that we do,
Okay, now I'm beginning to like this guy.
Okay, so he's making a point that if earlier the idea was that if I document these images and release it to the world, we can find a way to fix this problem. But now it seems like it doesn't matter, because we've been documenting Africa for how many decades? We've been
Yep.
documenting India, we've been documenting Philippines. Doesn't matter, nothing changes. In fact, right now, uh, Auschwitz is being relived by the people of Xinjiang in China, and uh, the world is silent. Right now, there are concentration camps there, and anyways, so it seems the argument the filmmaker is making is that we, the consumers, the people who watch this, or watch such videos, or we watch such films and read the articles about such atrocities, are also responsible for the suffering of these people.
Yep.
Would you agree with
Yes.
his statement?
Yes. That is the market that I was referring
If you
to.
agree, then what responsibility does the consumer of any piece of entertainment have? Because just before this question, we agreed that documentary is to be seen as a piece of entertainment. So you, as the audience of a piece of entertainment, when you buy a ticket to watch this film, what responsibility are you signing up for? Or what responsibility do the audience of a film have?
So, if this film can actually convince even one member of the audience about, or um, kind of make them think about their own complicity in this entire process, elaborate process, what is being described or depicted here, the film has succeeded in its aim. So, in terms of responsibility, I'm not sure. I have to think about that. Mohammed, anything?
Very serious question, actually. I have not thought it when I buy a ticket and what I am signing for. One thing I can say that I should know the purpose, real purpose of this movie, why the director has made this movie or a person documentary, and have I really understood or sympathized with the subject what he's presenting here in this documentary. He's trying to show something. He's trying to show the other side of the human uh, society where they are suffering. And I'm understanding that, yeah, people are suffering. Yeah, I am in a better position. Yes, I can do something for them, or I can contribute, or sharing this movie to others. Actually, I thought this. Okay, I have watched this movie. Somewhere I have some responsibility now. What should I do? What should I do? First thought came to my mind was show to my friend, discuss about it, tell them that, yeah, people are suffering, so let's do something. Let's improve ourselves so that we can do something for these people. At least we a conversation can be built on this. That is what I felt I can do. So that's it, but it's a very serious question.
Okay, you bring an interesting point that if you consume a piece of art and it really affects you, uh, you have some obligation to spark a conversation about it, and make more people aware of why this thing is important.
Yes. Ask others to watch this, and what does this mean? This movie means, or this documentary means to all of humanity.
Okay, not just about this film, I'm talking about any film in general. So,
Yeah.
and Aruna, what was your answer in terms of responsibility of an audience?
I would say the only responsibility an audience of any such piece of provocative art is to be aware in their thinking when they're engaging with the film about their own role in the entire process of the actual making of the film, the distribution, and whatever is happening when it is being viewed by that audience. So if a audience member is you know aware of the how do I put it, aware of the power dynamics involved here and what exactly is happening, I think that's the only responsibility that we can expect from a member of an audience?
Okay, so I'm going to make things a little difficult for both of you for the sake of the argument. Again, this is, just to uh, make you guys think a little deeper about what you have answered, and I'm not trying to personally grill you. So the filmmaker suggests that it's not just that these people are in poor condition and these organizations are taking advantage of it, and these photographers are taking advantage of it. It's not just that. It's the people who read these articles and watch these movies are also responsible. And both of you agree that yes, the audience also does have some responsibility, whether they read this in the article or they watch this particular movie. My question to both of you is, why is the audience responsible? Because the audience didn't say that tomorrow morning I'll open up the newspaper and read an article about people dying from hunger. The audience didn't ask for that. They presented that. We didn't ask Renzo Martens to go make this film. We didn't ask him to play the character of the buffoon he plays in the film. So
No, this film is different. Let's put that aside. But in a way, when let's say I'm subscribing to, let's say I'm a US citizen, I'm subscribing to a New York Times, or I'm in the Arab world, I'm subscribing to Al Jazeera. In a way, I am giving the responsibility of choosing the news items that would be presented to me. The curatorial responsibility is being shifted to that particular organization. So in that way, I'm responsible, right? And
okay,
then
and
whatever they do, it's kind of authorized by me because I'm paying for that.
and in any news organization, they are obliged to report the ongoings of the world, right? So if there is war in a country, they're obliged to report that, and if there is poverty and hunger which is causing deaths, that is also worth reporting. But you, the consumer, you didn't ask for it. You're just being provided this information because this is what happened in the last 24 hours. Or you didn't go and look for this film to go watch it. You didn't ask the director to play a cartoon character in the film. But it's his decision. He made the film and he has a message to convey. So why is the audience responsible?
Because we are in a way we are authorizing them too, right? Because we are paying
No, the
for it.
film has
Whatever.
already been made.
No, I'm not talking about just this film.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
film is a piece of critique, right?
Okay.
I'm talking about the mainstream sources of consumption, your
Mhm.
mainstream newspapers, your news channels, all of that.
Or
Right?
any other documentary about,
Yeah, yeah. Any do
sure,
gooder sort of documentary, which is
sure.
trying to portray look how these guys are suffering and all of that.
Mhm.
So in the context of Congo specifically, right? Just by reporting on the condition of Congo, and I'm sure you know, right, that are the situation in Congo, and it has been for the last several decades, is that there are lots of militias around, right, small militias which control parts of Congo. Congo is a huge fucking country, right? So I think it is the largest country in sub-Saharan Africa. So the central government itself in Kinshasa, it holds very little power. Power is distributed among small militias, and they are always in conflict. And the source of the conflict is is over the actual natural resources that Congo has, which is basically number one is cobalt, tin, and there is a mineral ore called coltan, right? So coltan, cobalt, I'm not sure you know that that's used for batteries which are used in our electronic gadgets, our laptops, anything, or even our to power or generators, whatever, batteries. And coltan is another mineral which is used for heat resistant capacitors, which is a very important component of any electronic item that you use. Your cell phone, your video game consoles, your cameras, your printers, everything contains coltan, right? So just the act of reporting on Congo or any country which sort of has those resources, mineral resources. So by reporting on that conflict, you are indirectly contributing to it, right? So in order to cover the conflict, you have to use those minerals. You have to use your electronic items. You have to use your plane engine to go to places. You have to use your phone to make calls and everything. You have to use your camera to film those everything, right? So yeah. That is the inherent contradiction of it all.
Yeah, but coming back to the question, why is the audience considered responsible in this equation?
Um, if I
Because
may,
yeah,
if I may, as you have put that whatever has happened in last 24 hours, it's going to be in my paper tomorrow. So, am I responsible for that articles? The question is yes, I am, because see, we as a human, we are living in a society. So, when we live in a society, we are interdependent. Every person in a society is dependent on another person. So suppose a farmer commits a suicide somewhere in our country, definitely I am that, and that has been reported in my newspaper. Definitely I am responsible because I have been consuming whatever he has grown. I have been dependent on that person. So it's not the fault of a newspaper agency to report it, but somewhere I am also responsible for people dying or people committing suicide somewhere in our society, because we are ultimately interdependent. Symbiosis, if I have to put somewhere, it may not be directly. A professor in a in suppose in a Congo, a person is dying there. Definitely, I am responsible. Somewhere I am responsible because if I have to put this one, there people are growing, they have forest, and the same oxygen I am consuming here, though not systematically. Somewhere, as a planet, no, we are all dependent on one another, on resources. So somewhere, I feel that way. Yeah, I am responsible for that in this way.
That is very well put, Mohammed. Thanks for sharing that. I don't know, were you trying to say something?
no, I was just repeating the same point that we are the market, right? We are enabling that to happen. We are consuming it without
True.
any critical thought.
Hmm. And uh, in Greek storytelling, there are a few key components of storytelling that that is expected. One is pathos, which is the emotional
Hmm.
component of a story. There is logos, which is the logical component, and there's ethos, ethics.
Hmm.
Now, in this film, which of these three do you think were there, and was there anything lacking out of these three?
So for me, ethos is the dicey area here. There can be different opinions here about
That's the
how.
reason I've raised this question. But yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So the only question, see, whatever he's depicting or he's trying to do, all that is all good on paper, fine. But the means of doing that, that is in question. That is what is dicey because he is the very forms of exploitation that he is critiquing or criticizing through the duplication of that white man savior complex. He's perpetuating the same form of exploitation, right? So therein lies the problem with this film, because I don't really have an answer right now. I have to think about it a bit deeper. It's just been one day.
Even I am not sure about that, but logical and emotional part, if you take, if it is a logical, then you can't take it emotionally. Means emotional aspect has to be discarded if you are sticking to logical. But coming to ethical, um, sorry, man, I'm not sure about that too.
So you're not sure if this film is ethical or not.
Mm.
Ethically, see, he's not making any profit out of it. But as Aroonav has said, somewhere it is also,
He is making a profit
yeah.
out of it.
So ethically, that's wrong. But somewhere he's also trying to, as we have seen the audio, he's managing. That word manages. So again, I am in a dilemma that what I have to
No, no,
tell this document. Yeah.
the inherent problem is because he is actually monetizing this. He is profiting out of it. He is extracting the resource of poverty.
And he's saying that that's a wrong thing.
Yeah, that is what. Therein lies the contradiction.
Yeah, this is why I wanted to have this discussion that even the emotional aspect of it, right? And what you see is extremely dark and extremely disappointing. But why do that? Right? And you he shows dead bodies of people. This is what I consider. Actually, I guess since we're at the end of the discussion, I can go into what I think of the film. I think that is crossing the line. That is way beyond crossing the line.
But he would argue that I'm not showing a dead body. I'm showing, kind of white vultures taking images of that dead body.
So, and this little baby who also dies in the film, that is also covered. The family members are still dealing with the shock and running around with the body and trying to figure out, call the doctor, call the nurse.
Yeah.
Is there filming it? And like you guys agreed upon, this is not a documentary. This is made for entertainment. So my personal opinion of the film, now that we're end of the discussion, maybe I can say it. I really dislike this film. And it makes me angry. And I find it unacceptable. Now, this is a different story that Renzo Martens will say you're right and I was just playing a character. But and if Renzo Martens is listening to this, maybe he can type out the answer in the comments, because on one hand he says that I'm playing a character, it's a caricature of a person, and that's why I should not be responsible for the conduct that I do on film. And it really pissed me off how kind these people were to him, right?
Yeah.
The people who are struggling, who don't have enough for themselves, how genuinely open they were to him. And he's betraying that level of human empathy by being sarcastic, by being ironic, by pretending to make a joke for the camera. Right? His behavior is supposed to be of a caricature, so he's trying to make jokes that the people in front of him will not understand, but 6 months later the audience in Europe will understand. So I find that ethically questionable as well.
Yes.
And
But the point is that if you say that to Renzo, right, he might say that was exactly my aim and I have succeeded.
yeah, so my question to Renzo is, on one hand, you say that you're playing a character. This is not the real Renzo Martens. Question number one is, why is the caricature called Renzo Martens? Right? Why not create a new character like Borat or Mr. Bean? Make a new character. It just seems that he did what he did, and now that his intentions or his motives are being questioned and criticized, he plays the card that, oh, it's just a prank, bro. Like those annoying YouTube videos. They harass people and they say it's just a prank. So I think that's what this guy is doing, because if he takes responsibility for it and he apologizes for it, this film will be basically shunned by the art society. And he's desperate to make it into the art society, because out of that, he I don't know what his career is, because I don't see any other films from him. I've seen episode
He has
one.
made a sequel to this. It's called White Cube.
Yeah, I've seen episode 1. I haven't seen White Cube yet. So another question I have for Mr. Renzo Martens is, if you're playing a character and you don't hold responsibility, then why is the audience considered accountable for watching this film? Right? The quotation that I played in the audio clip, he says the audience themselves are responsible for people suffering. If I, the viewer, did not choose to make this documentary, did not ask you to play a cartoon character in front of people, I am responsible, then why can't you, the creator of this abomination, be responsible. So
But I don't think he's shunning responsibility for himself, right?
he is backtracking on his responsibility by saying that, hey, that's a character called Renzo Martens. That's not me, the filmmaker Renzo Martens. I'm a much better person. And
Yeah.
you can see he modulates his tone,
Mm.
right? The tone you hear in the film
Yep.
and the audio
Exactly.
clip is completely two different voices.
Yeah, that's the point I was making in the beginning also, right? Because in the film he's very daft, and while he's actually talking about the film in some museum, some introducing the film in some film society or something,
Who
he's a
knows?
very
5 years
different.
later, he'll make one more film and say all the criticisms I addressed in the art society were a character.
Yep.
So this person is not to be trusted, especially not with an important subject or a sensitive subject as this, because he's made a mockery out of it. So yeah, I hate this film. It pisses me off.
How did you come across this?
So I saw this in my recommendations for a long time, and a couple of people I know have seen this film, so I wanted to discuss it with them. So ended up watching it. And the reason I picked this for the group is that I think as a film society, we watch a lot of good films, but I think it is also important for us to watch bad films and understand why those films are bad. And that's the reason, throughout the discussion, I maintained a neutral stance and only shared what I really think. Because if I said all this in the beginning, then the back and forth that we had would not have been what it was.
One point I wanted to discuss here was
Sure.
he says, the director says to the poor people that take in charge of your poverty, enjoy it. When I heard this, the thought came that when we have some, it has happened in medically also, that if a person is told that he has a cancer or he has fatal disease where he will not live long, like Breaking Bad. Once you accept that reality, that nothing is going to change, nothing is going to happen to my conditions, I get a courage, that courage, that how to put it, unfailing fearlessness. Somewhere it comes inside us.
But
Is
the
Yeah.
question is that level of fatalism good for those people? Just to accept that nothing will ever change, and just accept it and
Mhm.
live their lives accordingly. So, I mean, maybe another point we can discuss is what is the way out, right? Of course, we are not really qualified people to talk in depth about that, but still, how do you deal with this problem of this kind of endemic extreme poverty?
Yeah, I'm not the right person to answer that one, because I can
Mohammed,
only hope to learn from those people. Yeah.
you bring up a very interesting point. And in that segment where they switch on the neon lights and this guy announces to the crowd that enjoy poverty, because that's all there is to it. It's not going away anytime soon. You can see the look of disappointment
Yeah.
in the people around him. It is heartbreaking. It
Yeah.
is horrible what he's doing to them. And you might argue that, hey, but everybody was dancing in the end, right? The kids were dancing, yes. And to be honest, you put shiny lights and you put some music, kids will dance. They're not dancing because this guy's made some grand statement about life. They're dancing because there is an opportunity and the friends are here and let's have fun. So it is worth noting that this guy made this neon sign way before he reached the location.
Yeah.
So this was already in his mind. In a way, the whole documentary is an excuse to play this segment of him bringing some neon lights he made in Europe to Congo to, you know,
Yeah,
show
he's
it to the people.
playing the provocateur, and some journalists come to
Yeah,
report on
he's
that too.
being, he's being cheeky and ironic, and the people there they don't get it.
Yeah,
And like Aroonav said, it's not for them. The whole show is done for people in Europe. So it's disappointing. In fact, I think he's worse than the people who were taking photographs of the poor people, because he's not just taking photographs, he's making fun of them.
Yeah, even
And
he's killing the little bit hope this organization are providing. Now I am getting it when he says to them that I think that person translates to those people that enjoy poverty. There is no any hope. Yeah, they are really dejected. Now I remember
it's
that
cruel,
scene.
isn't it?
Really cruel. Even if you rob them of their that hope is what holds man to this life. Even he's trying to steal them. That is what I am getting now. Yeah, really
you,
bad.
you can sense that palpable sense of disappointment when that group of photographers, they go to that doctor from Doctors Without Borders, right, and try to sell their photographs, and he says that this does not, this way off the mark. This is not the quality I'm expecting. All of that, you can see the disappointment, because he has, Renzo has kind of built the idea up in their heads that whatever money these white guys are making out of documenting poverty, you can do just as well, make $50 per photograph and all of that.
I really think this filmmaker is really not as clever as he thinks he is, because the solution that he came up with, that instead of these, foreign photographers coming in here and taking pictures and selling it on, selling it to the bureaus for $50 a piece, why don't you guys do it? And these are simple wedding photographers, right? And what is happening here is that he's not empowering anyone except these three boys or these four wedding photographers. The poor people will remain poor. It doesn't matter if Americans photograph them or local Congo people photograph them. So who's earning those $50 per piece in the end? It's still not the poor people.
Yep.
Right? The people who are actually hungry, the plantation worker, he's not going to get the $50.
No.
He got half-eaten meal from a lunchbox, and for that he's supposed to show a lot of gratitude. That's shameful conduct.
So in his next film, what I heard or what I read was that he's actually implemented this model. So he has gone to a plantation and he's now successfully commodifying their poverty for sale in the galleries, in terms of they're making sculptures and everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion to be had about this, about the ethics of it, and how the emotional aspect was manipulated, and how the logic was flawed. Pathos, logos, ethos. But yeah, if there is anything else to add, otherwise we can wrap up, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So on a closing note, our applications may be open for one more day, and if you want to join our film society, please see the description below for a link, and you can see the application form there. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.